The girl in Chanced Wind was dry and sharp, full of dust and old ash. Broken metal scattered the ground. Jace moved carefully, his boots crunching over rust and old bones. He wasn't here to fight. He was only looking for some old batteries, maybe a water cell. But today, he found something else. Deep inside a ruined outpost, past a bent fence and half a collapsed roof, Jace heard a sound. It wasn't metal, it wasn't wind. It was breathing, shaky, quiet, scared breathing. He raised his small flashlight and followed the sound. His hand rested near his sidearm, just in case. War made people dangerous, even those who once were kind. In the far corner, under a beam and behind a broken fuel drum, he saw her. A girl. No, not human. Her skin was smooth, but stained green and brown from mud and something darker. Her hair hung in wet ropes over her face. Chains were around her wrists, tight and rusted. She looked like she hadn't moved in days. She blinked slowly, afraid. When she saw Jace, she didn't scream. She didn't run. She only whispered something broken. "Don't touch me, human. I'm too dirty." Jace froze. Her voice was soft, barely a thread. Not angry, not hateful, just tired, ashamed. He looked at her hands, her arms, her knees scraped, bruised. She had been left here, forgotten. He took one slow step forward. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said, voice calm. "I just want to help." She shook her head. "Go away. They'll come back." "Who?" he asked, but she didn't answer. He knelt a short distance away. The air smelled of oil and old blood. "What's your name?" She looked up at him. Her eyes were large, silver blue, full of fear. "Sarah," she whispered. "I'm Jace." He reached into his pack and pulled out a small water bottle. He placed it gently on the ground between them. Then he slid it forward. She didn't move. He waited. After a full minute, she reached for the bottle. Her hand shook as she touched it, as if expecting it to vanish. She drank slowly. Not like an animal, but like someone trying not to cry. Jace looked around. No fresh tracks. Whoever chained her here was long gone or maybe didn't care. He leaned closer. "Let me get those chains off." Sarah flinched. "Don't. I'm not clean. I'm ruined." Jace smiled gently. "Chains don't care. If you're dirty. And I don't either." He moved in carefully. She didn't stop him. With a small tool from his belt, he worked on the locks. They were old and rusty. One snapped open, then the other. The chains fell to the ground with a heavy sound. Sarah didn't run. She just sat there, looking at her wrists like she didn't believe they were free. Jace took off his jacket and offered, It's cold." She took it slowly, unsure. When she wrapped it around herself, Jace saw her lips tremble. She was trying not to show emotion, but it was there. "Why did you help me?" she asked. Jace stood and looked outside. Clouds moved across the dead sky. A storm was coming. "Because someone should have," he said. "And because you held on. I didn't want to, but you did." He reached out his hand. For a long second, she didn't move. Then, slowly, very slowly, her fingers touched his. Not a grip, just a touch. Then her hand slid into his fully. She looked away. "Don't touch me, human." Jace didn't move. He just stood there, hand in hers. She whispered again, "I'm too dirty." But her hand didn't let go, escaped through ash. And rain thunder cracked above the ruins as dark clouds rolled across the sky. The wind carried ash-gray flakes swirling like ghosts. It stuck to broken buildings, tangled in sharp wire, and painted the world in silence and sorrow. Jace's hand tightly as they stepped out of the shelter. Her bare feet slipped in the mud, and her legs trembled, but she followed. She didn't say anything. Not thank you. Not where are we going. Just silence. Only her hand, still wrapped in his, told him she hadn't given up. The world outside was worse than inside. The outpost had collapsed more, since Jace first arrived. Wooden beams lay broken like bones. Something had burned here not long ago. Blackened metal and melted panels lined the path as Jace led her through a side gate, under a fence that had once kept things out. Now it kept nothing. "We need to move fast," Jace said. "They'll come back. The ones who chained you." Sierra didn't look at him. "They don't care anymore. They left me to die. Then we make sure they never find you again." A flash of light lit up the sky in the distance gold blue, not like lightning. Jace froze. "Drone scout," he whispered. Sira followed his eyes. "They're searching." "Yeah, and we're standing in the open." He grabbed her wrist gently and pulled her into the ruins of an old farming shack. The roof was half gone, and rain started falling through the hole slow at first, then harder. Jace could hear the distant whir of propellers machines moving through the sky. He pushed Sarah into a shadowed corner. "Stay down." Outside, the sound of engines grew louder. The drone passed overhead, scanning the area. Jace held his breath, pressing his back against the cold, wet wall. Sarah covered her mouth, trembling, then dashed silence. The drone moved on. Jace exhaled. That was close. He turned to find Sarah sitting with her knees pulled to her chest. Her lips were blue from cold. Her soaked skin shivered. She was breaking down. He knelt beside her. "We can't stay here. They'll search again. We have to reach the ridge by nightfall. There's an old tunnel system there. It'll keep us safe." She looked up, eyes wide and tired. "I can't. I'm slowing you down." "You're not," he said firmly. "I am." She touched her chest. "I'm not strong. My kind. We're not like you. Not anymore." "Then I'll be strong for both of us," he said. He stood and held out his hand again. Sira stared at it. Then slowly, she placed her hand in his. Again she didn't let go. The road to the ridge was not easy. They walked through open fields covered in black mud. Old machines lay rusted, their wires hanging like veins. Lightning flashed above them, and the wind howled. Jace wrapped his arms around Sarah as they moved each step harder, each breath colder. "How far is it?" she asked, her voice barely louder than the rain. "An hour, maybe less if we hurry." "Do you really believe we'll make it?" He looked at her. "I believe we already are." Sarah smiled faintly. "Humans, always so stubborn. It keeps us alive." As they passed through a broken fence, a sudden noise made Jace stop. Click. He raised his hand. "Stop." Sarah froze. "Pressure mine," Jace said, pointing down. "Half buried. You step on that, and it's over." She looked pale. "Back up slowly," he said. They moved carefully, inch by inch. Once she was safe, Jace knelt and marked the mine with a red flare stick from his belt. "We're not the first to walk this path. And someone didn't want visitors." They moved on, faster now, more alert. The storm got worse. Rain fell in sheets, blurring their vision. Ash mixed with water, turning into dark sludge. Jace led Sarah into a ditch beside the road, using a fallen tree as cover. "We'll rest here," he said. She collapsed into the mud, gasping. Her legs were shaking again. Jace pulled off his pack and found a thermal blanket, wrapping it around her. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "Because I see someone worth saving. But I'm one of them. You're not. Not anymore." She looked down. "You don't even know what they did to me." "I don't need to." She turned to him. "What if I'm dangerous?" Jace met her eyes. "You had every chance to hurt me, but you didn't. Instead, you held my hand." Her eyes welled up, but no tears came. Maybe she had no more left. Suddenly dash noise. Voices. Not machines this time. People. Rough voices in the rain. Scav team echo. "We've got footprints." Jace's eyes went wide. "They found us." He pulled Sarah up. "We run now." They raced through the ditch, slipping in the mud. Jace held her hand the whole way. Shots rang out behind them, crude weapons. Loud and deadly. Mud splashed around them as they ran. Jace pulled her behind a broken transport crate. The scavenger's lights flashed across the field. "Keep low," he whispered. A shadow moved close. To close. Sierra pressed herself into Jace's side, breath shaking. The scavenger passed his feet away. Then he stopped, looked around. His light flicked toward their crate. Jace held his breath just before the light landed. A loud crash echoed in the distance. Metal fell. Something exploded. "Damn wildlife," one of the scavengers shouted. "Let's move. Check the far side." The shadows ran off. Jace looked at Sarah. Her hands were still gripping his jacket tightly. "We have to keep going," he said. They climbed the ridge in silence, wet and shaking. When they finally saw the tunnel entrance dark and hidden behind vines, Sarah collapsed at the edge. Jace caught her. "We made it," he whispered. She nodded weakly. "I never thought I'd feel safe again." Jace smiled, brushing wet hair from her face. "You are now." She looked down at their hands, still together, still holding, and she didn't let go. The shelter beneath the star-studded entrance was hidden behind overgrown vines and old stone. Most would miss it. Even Jace nearly did. He pushed the thick plants aside and found a narrow gap in the earthen old maintenance tunnel from a time before war had scorched the world. He glanced back. Sarah leaned against a tree, soaked, pale, barely able to stand. "We made it," he whispered. "This place, it's safe. For now." She didn't speak, but her eyes flickered with something relief. Or maybe disbelief. Jace helped her through the narrow opening. Inside, the tunnel was dark and cold, but unlike the outside world, it wasn't dying. The walls were lined with ancient steel. Water dripped from above. Their footsteps echoed. Jace lit a soft blue torch and led the way through tight corners and long, silent halls. At last they reached a circular chamber once used for rest by workers long gone. It had broken benches, cracked lights, and dust everywhere. But to them, it felt like a palace. Zero collapsed onto the floor, hugging herself. Jace knelt beside her and unpacked dry rations and a heating pad from his bag. He placed it under her back and draped a thermal blanket over her again. "You're safe now," he said softly. "Don't say that," she murmured. "Why not?" "Because every time someone says that, something worse happens." He looked at her, silent. "I was taken when I was just a child," she whispered. "My people. We had no weapons. We only ran. We didn't belong to the war, but the war found us." Jace listened, his hands still. "They made us dig, fix, bleed. I saw my sister taken. I saw my mother starve. Then, they forgot me. Just left me in that place like broken junk." She laughed bitterly. "And then you, a human, show up. The ones they told us to fear. They lied to you," Jace said. "Just like they lied to us about your kind." She turned her head. "You didn't run from me. No. You didn't fear me. No." Her voice cracked. "You touched me, and you held on." Sarah was silent. Jace reached into his pocket and pulled out a tiny mirror, scratched but still usable. He offered it. She looked at it with dread. "I don't want to see what I look like." "You should," he said, "because it's not what you think." She took it slowly. With shaking fingers, she lifted it to her face. She stared. Her face was gaunt, her skin still stained, her eyes dim. But in that reflection, there was also strength. A spark. A survivor. She stared for a long time. Then, just barely, she began to cry. Hours passed. The storm outside raged on. But inside, silence wrapped around them. Jack started a small heater from a battery unit he found. Warmth spread through the chamber. Sierra sat beside the heater, holding a mug of hot liquid. "Jace, mixed from emergency packs. "Where will you go after this?" she asked quietly. "Not sure," Jace said. "I was headed to Nova Reach before I found you. Maybe I'll try again. Maybe I won't. You should leave me here." He looked at her, eyebrows raised. "You serious?" "Yes. I'll slow you down. They'll come for me eventually." "Then let them come," Jace said. "They'll have to go through me first." "Why?" she asked, truly confused. "You don't even know me." Jace stared at the heater, then at her. "I don't need to know everything." "You held on. That's all I need." She said nothing, but her hands clenched around the cup. Later, Jace explored the tunnel system. He found something in an old storage room, a locked case. Inside were supplies, tools, and a map. Not a standard one. This was marked with coded lines, hidden paths, and old rebel routes. This could take us beyond the old zone," he muttered. He returned and laid the map out on the ground. Sierra studied it with him. "What's this symbol here?" She pointed. "Refuge. At least, that's what old records say. A hidden sanctuary for those left behind. Do you believe it still exists?" Jace smiled faintly. "I believe in possibilities. Then, maybe, I'll believe in you." Their eyes met, but peace never lasted long in their world. As they prepared to leave, a distant hum echoed through the tunnel's machines. "They found us," Jace muttered. "How trackers maybe, or your captors finally remembered they left something valuable behind." The lights flickered. Jace stood, pulling his gear on. "Get your things. We're moving." Sierra stood too, panic in her eyes. "We'll never outrun them underground." "Then we go where they won't. Up, up. There's a lift shaft. No power, but we can climb it. They won't expect that." She hesitated. "I'm scared." He took her hand again. "I know, but we're doing this together." They reached the lift shaft. It was narrow, dark, and endless. The ladder inside was rusted. Pieces broke under Jace's hands, but he climbed carefully. Sierra followed, every movement full of effort. "Don't look down," he called. "Too late," she said, voice trembling. Halfway up, the noise returned closer now. Clanking feet. Robotic voices. "Target located," a cold machine voice echoed. "Move," Jace shouted. They climbed faster. A light beam shot up toward them, just missing Sierra's leg. She screamed but didn't fall. Jace reached down and grabbed her arm. "Don't let go." "I won't," she cried. They reached the top and pulled themselves out just as the shaft below lit up with sparks and noise. They slammed the hatch shut and ran outside. The storm had passed. The stars shone bright above them for the first time. Jace and Sierra stood under the night sky, breathing hard, dirty, but alive. Sierra looked at her hand in his again, and again she never let go. Broken maps and buried secrets said stars above were cold and distant. Jace hadn't seen a sky like this in weeks. No ash, no clouds, just clean, quiet space, like a promise that there was still beauty left in the galaxy. But they couldn't stop. Not yet. Sierra leaned on his arm as they walked along a rocky ridge under the moonlight. Her steps were slow, but determined. The chase through the tunnels had weakened her, but she didn't let go of Jace's hand even once. Ahead of them, the map showed a Kanuna forgotten place, called Calder's Mouth. The hidden refuge was marked beyond it. But there was something strange Jace hadn't noticed before. Symbols not from human charts, not from anything he recognized. These marks weren't made by rebels, he said, turning the map toward the moonlight. Sierra stepped closer. Her eyes widened. "These are from my people," she whispered. "From before we were taken. Can you read them? A little this. This symbol here means danger, and this one." She traced a curved line. "It's old language. Means buried truth." Jace looked at her. Buried truth. Maybe a memory. Maybe something worse. You think this route is a trap? Sierra shook her head slowly. I think someone tried to hide something important, and someone else tried to erase it. They reached the canyon by dawn. It was massive, carved by time, not war. Sharp cliffs on either side, mist covered. The bottom like breath from a sleeping beast. A narrow bridge stretched across a broken metal rail system, barely holding together. You're not afraid of heights, are you? Jace asked, trying to smile. Sira looked at the shaking structure. I think I'm afraid of dying alone more. They crossed carefully. Each step made the bridge groan. Wind whipped around them, and broken wires sparked near their feet. Halfway across, Sira stopped. Look, she pointed. Etched into the rusted metal were deep carvings. Alien script. Her script. They came this way, she said. Others. Years ago. Jace ran his fingers along the letters. What does it say? She hesitated. It says, we buried the truth, but the stars will remember. He frowned. What truth? She looked down. I don't know. But someone didn't want it found. As they reached the other side, a sound echoed behind them. A hum, then a deep mechanical growl. They turned. A black drone floated above the canyon, scanning the bridge. Then another, and another. Go, Jace shouted. They ran into the rocks as the bridge exploded behind them, the metal shattering and falling into the mist. They followed us, Ciro gasped. They were always following, Jace growled. They dove into a crack in the cliff face. A narrow cave hidden behind twisted roots and crumbling stone. Inside, darkness swallowed them, but they were alive, barely. Deep inside the cave, Ciro found more carvings. The walls were lined with old stories, pictures in glowing ink. This is a temple, she whispered. From before the war, a temple, Jace said. You mean religious? Not just that. A memory vault. What's a memory vault? She stepped forward and touched the wall. The glowing ink lit up like stars across the stone, and the cave shifted. Suddenly, the walls came alive. Images danced in light. Sira gasped. These are my ancestors. This is my mother's line. I thought it was all lost. Jace stared in awe. A woman appeared in the light, a tall figure with gold skin and glowing eyes. She held a child in one arm and pointed toward a star. This shows our exodus, Sarah said, when our kind fled the burning skies. Why? Would this be hidden? Because someone didn't want us to remember who we are? The images shifted now, showing human soldiers, weapons, ships descending. This is the invasion, she whispered. Jace watched, stunned. Your kind was peaceful. We were healers, teachers, artists. But you are turned into tools, he said. She nodded. Slaves, weapons, shadows, and you were meant to forget all of this. Cira looked at him, her voice shaking. But now I remember, and I want the galaxy to remember too. A deep rumble shook the cave. Dust fell from the ceiling. There, sealing the canyon, Jace said, burying the last of it. We have to go. What about this place? Cira turned to him, a sudden fire in her eyes. Take a picture. Record it. Someone must know. Jace raised his wrist, come and scanned. The walls. Holograms flickered and locked. Done. As they moved back to the surface, the cave began to collapse. Explosions echoed outside. The enemy wasn't just chasing them now. They were erasing history. On the ridge, Jace and Cira found themselves surrounded, not by machines, by men. Armed. Scavengers in old armor, helmets cracked, faces covered. Well, one of them said, stepping forward. What do we have here? Jace stepped in front of Cira. We're not here to fight. But you brought one of them with you, the man sneered. You know there's a price for that. There's a price for leaving people to die too, Jace said calmly. The scavenger raised his weapon. Enough talk. But Cira stepped forward. She didn't hide. She didn't shake. She raised her hands and said something in her own language, ancient, powerful. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the scavengers' weapons short-circuited, sparks flew. They stumbled back, cursing. What? The Sarah stood tall, eyes glowing softly. I remember now, she said. What we were. What I am. The scavengers ran as the night fell again. Jace and Sarah sat near the canyon's edge, quiet stars above, a broken world below. You could have destroyed them, Jace said, but you didn't. I'm not a weapon, she whispered. I just wanted them to feel what it's like, to be powerless. Jace nodded. So, what now? She looked at the map. The path forward was clear. Now we finish what they tried to erase. She reached for his hand, and once again she never let go. The fire in the valley's sky was no longer quiet. As Jace and Sarah left the canyon behind, the world around them changed. The wind grew hotter, the soil beneath their boots cracked like dry bones. Strange lights flickered in the distance, and the air carried a scent of metal and smoke. We're near the scorched valley, Jace said, checking the map's old symbols. No one's crossed it in years. Why not? Sarah asked, her voice low. Because it burns, he replied. Always. Ahead of them stretched a vast wasteland, black ground, shattered rocks, and rivers of glowing red heat. Broken ships littered the valley like giant skeletons. Old war machines half sunk in the ash, and energy pulses flickered across the cracked land like dying lightning. This place is cursed, Sarah whispered. Maybe, Jace said, but it's the fastest way to the refuge. Then we walk. Through fire, he looked at her. Not alone. They wrapped their faces, shielded their eyes, and stepped into the heat. Each step into the scorched valley felt heavier. The air shimmered. Dust burned the lungs. Jace's boots sizzled as they crossed a vein of heat flowing beneath the earth. They passed the twisted remains of a fallen dreadnought, its giant hull blackened, its name unreadable. Strange symbols were carved into the wreckage, and Sarah paused. This was a slave ship, she said. I know this model. My people were taken in ships like this. Jace felt a chill despite the heat. They moved on, carefully avoiding flickering energy fields. The valley wasn't empty. Strange creatures crawled in the shadows, blind, twisted things born from radiation and hatred. Don't stop, Jace warned. If they sense fear, they'll follow. Sarah stayed close. Her body trembled, not from weakness, but memory. This valley held echoes of screams. Lost voices clung to the rocks. Then they reached the center and it happened. A wall of fire erupted from a collapsed ridge. Smoke rose fast, thick and choking. From behind it, shapes emerged, soldiers. Not human, not alien. Something between. They wore black armor, fused with flesh. Their helmets glowing red. Corrupted creations from old wars. Warspawn, run, Jace shouted. But the warspawn were fast. Lasers cut the air. Ash exploded around them. Jace pulled Sarah behind a downed transport. The metal was hot, nearly melting. They were trapped. We need to move, Jace said. We can't stay here. I can't, Sarah gasped. My leg, something's wrong. He looked down. A sharp metal shard had torn through her ankle. Damn it, he muttered. He yanked off his belt, wrapped it tight, and hoisted her into his arms. She tried to protest, but he held firm. You saved me more times than you know, he whispered. It's my turn now. He ran. Bullets struck the ground. Heat tore through his coat. Firestorms howled. The warspawn roared, closing in. But Jace didn't stop. He ran until his legs shook. He ran until his lungs burned. Then he fell. Sarah tumbled from his grip, rolling into the dirt. Jace, she cried out, crawling to him. His side was burned, his arm cut deep. He struggled to rise, blood painting the rocks beneath him. Go, he said, coughing. Don't let them take you. No, she whispered. Not again. The wars circled them now, smoke rising around them like death's breath. One of the creatures stepped forward. Return the asset, it growled in a deep, digital voice. The female belongs to us. Sierra shook. Memories slammed into her. Chains, cages, burning lights. The sound of numbers shouted in cold rooms. She screamed, but it wasn't a scream of fear, it was something else. A light burst from her chest, pure and white. The warspawn hesitated. Sierra stood, weak, limping, but her eyes glowed now. Her body shimmered. The power inside her awakened. I don't belong to you, she said. She raised her hand, and the fire bent. The flame shifted direction away. From her, away from Jason, toward the warspawn. They screamed as the fire obeyed her. Sira walked forward, barefoot in ash and glowing embers. The valley lit up, the warspawn burned, and she did not. When it ended, Jace opened his eyes slowly. Sierra knelt beside him, eyes dim again, her strength nearly gone. Are you okay? He whispered. I think so, she said, smiling weakly. What was that? Something they buried inside me. Something I was never supposed to remember. He smiled faintly. Remind me not to get on your bad side. Never, she said, softly brushing blood from his cheek. They reached the edge of the valley at dawn. The fire had quieted behind them, and Jace, though wounded, could walk with her help. They sat beneath a broken archway, once the gate of a city lost to war. Sira laid her head on his shoulder. You could have let me go, but you didn't let go of me. They looked at their hands again, scarred, burned, but still together, always together. The last gatekeeper danced in the sunlight as they reached the base of the final hill. Beyond it stood the ancient walls of Arkhaven, the last rumored refuge, hidden for generations. Legends said it was built during the First Rebellion, a place where neither human nor alien blood defined who you were, only survival and heart. But nothing came easy. The gates weren't open, they weren't even welcoming. The wall was made of living steel, twisting metal that pulsed like veins. A massive gate stood in the center, sealed tight, its center glowing with a pale blue emblem, the mark of the first pact, an agreement between species made before war shattered everything. Jace stared up, blood dried along his temple. His body still ached from the scorched valley, but he kept standing, because Sierra still held his hand. This is it, he whispered. Sira looked up, her eyes full of something between fear and hope. Do you think they'll accept us? We didn't come all this way to be turned away, he replied. She stepped forward, limping slightly. A strange calm washed over her face. She placed her hand gently against the glowing emblem. A voice echoed through the steel, calm, cold, powerful. Identify. Sarah straightened. I am Sarah of the Valen bloodline, daughter of the memory halls, survivor of the breeding camps, bearer of the awakening flame. The wall went silent, then another voice, older, deeper, human. You carry war inside you. Ciro flinched. I carry pain, and truth, and power I did not ask for. And the one beside you. Jace stepped forward. I'm Jace, human scavenger, protector. I carry no great name, only the will to see her safe. Silence again, then the gate's glow deepened. But it didn't open. Instead, a figure stepped from the steel, a gatekeeper. He was massive, 7 feet tall, armored in light and shadows. His face was hidden behind a smooth helm, and in one hand, he held a weapon that shimmered like memory itself. To enter Arkhaven, the gatekeeper said, one must not only be strong, but true. He raised the weapon, pointing it at Sira. The blood you carry once burned cities. It crushed stars. You are a threat. I didn't choose that, Sira said. I was made to be that. But I choose something different now. The gatekeeper lowered the weapon slightly. And you, he turned to Jace. You, who carries no lineage, No right. Why protect her? Jace met the gatekeeper's stare, because when I found her, she was chained, starving, nearly broken, and still, she told me not to touch her because she thought she was too dirty. His voice shook, but she still held on, and so did I, because we were both alone, until we weren't. The gatekeeper said nothing. His weapon began to pulse, not with anger, but with reading. Show me, he said. What? Jace asked. Your memory, your truth. Before Jace could speak, light wrapped around him, and suddenly he was there again. The ruined outpost, the ash dot, the girl in chains. He saw himself reach for her, heard her whisper again, "Don't touch me," and yet her hand never let go. Image after image played before him, the escape through the ash, the shelter, the buried truths, the firestorm, her standing in the flames, glowing with power she never wanted. He saw every moment, and so did the gatekeeper. The light faded, silence fell, the wind howled through the valley behind them. Then the gatekeeper turned, and slowly he placed his hand on the gate. It opened, not fast, not loud, but it opened. Beyond the gate lay a new world, green hills, silver trees, clean skies, children playing beside machines that healed instead of hurt, humans and aliens together, real peace. Jace stared in awe. Syrah fell to her knees. The gatekeeper stepped aside, but before they entered, he raised his hand once more. Only those who carry light beyond